For us architects and landscape architects, our advantage is that we know how to construct things, so it'll be easier on that side. But currently, the trend is that because we're so focused on the construction, the building materials, we forget about the human element. So that's what we're going to try and sort of discuss today. And then the people who manage the people, that's the government. So ideally, good governance is making sure that everyone has equal access to resources in their city, barangay, municipality, what have you. So that is what the government is supposed to do. So this is just a quick review of what we define as planning. So ongoing planning is an ongoing and collaborative process in urban and regional resource management, but this can also be applied at the urban design or the public space level because everything is connected. So we discussed earlier, or I think this is in one of our modules. So what is an urban area in the Philippines? So there's a definition there in the Philippine Statistics Authority. So if a barangay has a population of 5,000 or more, that is classified as an urban area. Also, there are two other conditions. If there is at least one establishment over here with a minimum of 100 employees, or if the barangay has five or more establishments with a minimum of 10 employees, so that's about 50, and then or five or more facilities within a 2 kilometer radius from a barangay hall. I think there's a question. Is there a question? Yes, go ahead.
Okay, sir, kanang nag-project on screen.
Mo good. Okay, sorry. Okay, so let me present my screen. So makita na?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the previous slide was just this image, and this is the current slide. And the urban area definitions in the Philippines as of 2004, I need to like check, update this actually. This is a old definition. If a barangay has 5,000 or more people, if a barangay has at least one establishment with at least 100 employees, or if a barangay has five or more establishments with 50 employees and five or more facilities, it doesn't really say what kind of facilities, within a 2 kilometer radius from a barangay hall. So population is like the biggest factor. That's the human element I'm talking about. And just for comparison, the US has a sort of similar definition and Australia has as well. So I can just give you this slide and you can review that later. So what I'm doing with my other classes, the undergrad, we're actually looking at the barangays and municipalities slash cities where they are from, and we compiled a list. So I can show you the whole list here. So that's over 40 students in one class. Another class has 28. And then this is our class here. So I'm hoping that you guys, I'll share this link with you guys. So I'll just share, make editor, change editor. Okay. Copy link. I'll put it on here. So like while I'm discussing, you can fill this in. So I'll just zoom in a bit over here. So it's arranged by student name. I actually you can just put your name here. You can just insert like that, and then you can put your name in. Student number, name, and then your barangay. If you want to talk about the barangay, or if you only want to talk about the city, you can just write in your city. So you can see here it's NA and then uh, Pagadian City, and they forgot to put in the province. But I'm just doing that so I know specifically which city, which barangay, which province. And why I put country here, because like in one of my classes, we actually had one student from Qatar. And then over here, area type. So just based on your observations, it doesn't have to be like an objective sort of classification because like we don't have all our public data available. But maybe you guys who work in governance, government, could have a more specific definition for this. So I would define majority urban as an area, barangay, municipality, what have you, is an area with more built up space, more buildings, less permeable surfaces. And majority rural is basically more open space, more green fields, permeable surfaces, so vegetation, trees, etc. And then your site area in square kilometers, because we're using the metric system. Population, just write it in here. I think not everyone is using the same format, so I'll need to update that. So like this is 27,000, 210,000, etc. Density, I think I just put in a formula. You can just put in there. It's people divided by site area. And then over here, you already did this in your previous activities. What are the strengths and weaknesses of your area, your city, municipality, barangay, whatever. And then your landscape architecture or architectural solution, whichever background you're more familiar with. So they have it over here. Plus, you can also see what are the barangays and cities, municipalities that the other students are looking at. And you can compare. Maybe you have different solutions, or maybe you can get some ideas from the undergraduates that will help you with your thesis. So that's a interesting thing. Okay. So I did a quick comparison here, like where is the area with the biggest, which barangay in our group, in my classes, has the biggest area? So we have, I think this is an error. Let's see, is Talamban really 77,200 square kilometers? I think this is wrong. So I usually use Talamban, Phil Atlas, atlas.com. It's fairly kanang updated data using PSA statistics. So you should have here land area, coordinates, postal code, demographics. Let's put in area. Lamban area. Mhm. Let's see. Anyway, I'll just update that. So let's see what's the next highest value. Let's see. Let me zoom out a bit over here. Next highest value is something like this. Why are there people? Okay, I need to like double check. This is probably in hectares or something. Let's see. Next highest value. I think this would be it. So let me zoom in. So this is Butuan, JP Rizal Barangay in Butuan City. Apparently has an area of 800 square kilometers with a population of 337,000. So overall, if you see, the higher the population, the more weaknesses we observe, like flooding, traffic congestion, just to show that the larger the population in any urban area, usually there are more problems that come along with it. There are areas here, like in the less populated areas in the different provinces in the Philippines, there is less pollution, less traffic congestion, etc. But their problems are they want more businesses, they want more economic activity. So there's that balance going on. So going back to my slides over here, just highlighting the areas that I'm more familiar with: Cebu City, Bogo City, Talisay. These are different municipalities and cities in Cebu province. Another thing that we observe is that density calculation of like persons per square kilometer sometimes does not work because over here we have an area of 0.76 square kilometers, but a population of 27,000. And if you plug that in into a density calculator, you get 36,000 people per square kilometer, which is very erroneous because the maximum number of people is 27,000. So yeah, so sometimes density could be misleading. That's why in most analysis, people would usually ask for, or urban planners and designers would usually ask for site areas and population only, and then they can just like calculate density on their own. So density is like a very misleading number if you're looking to analyze your municipality, city, or barangay. And then, as we kanang already know, the most populated barangay in basically Cebu province and even Central Visayas is Guadalupe with 70,000 people and an area of 7.39 square kilometers. It's also one of the most like economically active. And notice that the density isn't so high at like 9,000. Like based on the color graph, this is somewhere in the mid range. The highest density really goes up like let's see, 14,000, like double. So this is Tabunok, Barangay Tabunok in Talisay. But it has a lot less number of people, mostly because the area is also very small, almost like 1/7 of Guadalupe. So with an area of 1.18 square kilometers, there's 17,000 people living there. And then in these like very tight congested areas, it's also what we call this, obvious that the economic activity isn't very high. So we can observe that there's a threshold. If you only have like 17,000 people, 20,000 people, there's not much economic activity, although it's definitely higher than those with less. But if you get a place like Guadalupe, anywhere like above 50,000 or like in the 40 to 50,000 range, that becomes like a major urban area, and you can see a lot of economic activity. So which is good for economic growth, but not so good for like welfare, equity, and the environment. So this is like the challenges of cities today. And then just for comparison, we have city tables over here: Doha City, Cebu City, Manila City, and Davao City, because I have one student from Qatar. Qatar, probably one of the richer cities like in the world. Notice that they have only a 646,000 population compared to Cebu City's 900,000, Davao City's 1,700,000, and Manila City's 1,800,000 population. I think also Manila City is the most dense city in the world with a population density of 43,000 people per square kilometer. And this is another sort of what do you call this, important thing to note. uh, Manila has the highest population in this like Cebu, what they call this, in the Philippine country, in the Philippines period. It's also the most economically active, but compared to the rest of the world, a place like Doha with half the number of people is like more economically competitive. So what's going on here? Basically, what I want to say that statistics are only part of the larger picture. It's not the complete package. So to really analyze what's going on in cities, we need more than the numbers. That's why we need to look at our maps. We need to uh, create maps, what do you call this? Identifying our CBDs, business centers, our residential areas. What are the distances between those different areas? Because that impacts not just economic activity but also health, fairness within the city, and job opportunities as well. So another comparison over here, we have New York City, total population of 8 million, living in an area of let's see, let's look at the land area because people can't live in the water area, so they divided it into land area and water area. So this is just a quick wiki search. Total land area of New York City is about 778 square kilometers. Compare that with Manila at 42 square kilometers and Doha City at 132 square kilometers. So big area, large number of people. And then the closest sort of American city that is sort of similar to Manila is Phoenix, Arizona, with a total land area of 1,342 square kilometers. Again, um, very, very large, like 10 times larger than, like, let's say, that 1,040, like a big number. I can't calculate it right away in my head. But more or less the same number of people, 1,600,000 people. It's actually less. So it could be that we need to provide adequate space, or very likely we need to provide adequate space for the people living in the city for them to produce, or like what do you call this, live better, but also um, have better economic activity. Because we can clearly see, like if we Google like Manila, there are a lot of very small, almost basically slum areas in Manila, and those areas are not producing the same amount of like income or revenue compared to what they call this, the American city. So this is like a very not really an apples to apples comparison. uh, American cities have had basically a 100 200 year lead in development, but I just want to hammer in the point that for a city to become more economically feasible, more economically healthy, and also like physically and socially healthy, we need to provide better spaces. So another one over here is Austin at around 900,000 population. So that's close to Cebu's population. Total land area is 319. Comparing that with Cebu City at only 7. So in the Philippines, we're living in very small spaces, And there's really a need to upgrade that. And how do we upgrade that? That's really the big question of urban planners and urban designers in our country. So, just as I said that the numbers are not enough, let me present to you Barangay Poblacion in Barili, this is in Cebu province, and Barangay Quiyot in Cebu City. So, um, more or less, not really the same. You have the scale bar over here. So, you can fit two Barangay Poblacions in Barangay Quiyot. But notice that Barangay Quiyot still maintains the grid pattern, and this is because it's more this is on the western side of Cebu province. I should probably include the map in here as well. I need to upgrade that. And Barangay Quiyot has the sort of post 2000 sprawling type of development. So between the two, it's very clear that Barili has a greater chance for sustainable development, where Barangay Quiyot is probably in danger, if not already beyond kanang repair, because they're digging into the mountains and like people are spreading here uncontrolled. So there is no regulation in Cebu province. And you have here their zoning maps. So barangay, let's say, Barangay Poblacion has the sort of commercial area near the main road in the center, sort of following the concentric model. And as we figured out last meeting or last two meetings ago, generally cities that are founded, um, let's say like early 1800s, one of the older cities, they maintain this pattern and they're basically untouched from like the sprawling development of the late 1900s. So it, the biggest opportunity for sustainable development is really our older untapped cities, because our newer cities have in the country of the Philippines specifically have been kanang what they call this ravaged or influenced by urban sprawl, uncontrolled growth, and having like huge negative impacts in the environment. Also, it's not sustainable and just basically, what I want to hammer in is that this kind of development is really costing us money. It's not economically feasible, and we're basically throwing money in the trash. So the government, our government loves money. So once, if we can sort of give this narrative to them that sustainable development is also beneficial economically and not just for the environment and like social benefits, I think we can like convince more politicians to go for sustainable. I think it's already happening, by the way. So not to say it's not happening, but we need to keep on pushing it and be vigilant because that this is our job as professionals in the built industry. So over here you see a drone shot of Barangay Poblacion in Barili, very picturesque. So a lot of things could be developed here. Also a very interesting street. I just like zoomed in on a random street. You see these small kiosks and a lot of what they call this street activities. You see people sitting, you see people buying food, people talking to each other. You see motorcycles, but also regular cycles like manually powered cycles. And you see a lot of people basically. And then you look at the sprawl example. I just looked in on a random street. It could be because the Google car was driving here during a weekday or like a time where nobody was around. But notice that there's really no people here. In fact, there's just a picture of a few cars. And really, I want to hammer in this difference between sustainable development and unsustainable development, that people are a big part of it. So you see Barangay Barili, even though it has a very low population, looks very vibrant compared to Barangay Quiyot, looks very dead and like secluded, isolated, no people, very kanang unfriendly. And then to help us with this sort of analysis, there's already, since our mapping in the Philippines is a little bit behind, I'm sure there are some, you will be familiar with some mapping websites in the Philippines. But through my research, I found the OCHA. I'll send you a link to their website. Already made these maps. These are based on 2017 data, January 2017. And we have one for basically all the provinces in the Philippines. So you can basically search your province and see what's a quick sort of snapshot of what's going on in your province. So they have some of the factors they're looking at is number one, population. Again, very important to look at population if you're doing urban planning and urban design. Poverty rates, that's a very big issue in the Philippines. Natural disasters, which we'll also be discussing next week. How does it impact our built environment? Notice the big spike in 2013. In Cebu province, we experienced both the typhoon and earthquake. And I think the biggest one being the earthquake in 2013. ravaged a lot of buildings in our province. Human development, this is conditional cash transfer beneficiary. So I think this is more like, um, is the income getting to, is the growth, the national growth trickling down to the people? I think some of it is, but like it's a very big political and also economic discussion, which I am not an expert on. But there's like, it's, the graph looks positive, so that could be a good thing. Nutrition rates, again, this is one of the major problems in the Philippines, food scarcity. And then they have here wash. So it's only water for washing, not water for drinking. Health. So how many health professionals are in this area, this province? Livelihood. I think they also cut out Negros Occidental in this map, which is like an error. Education, 87%, and the quality of shelter. So they divide it into strong roof, strong walls. So just for comparison, we have the NCR, the National Capital Region, and notice that they even in NCR, they even have more natural disasters over here. I don't know what the red dots are, but I can give you a more high def image. But more natural disasters compared to Visayas. Visayas only has a big spike in 2013. I think these are like casualties or kanang impacts on the damage. But the damage, I think, let me see here. Natural disaster indicators per year. So I'm not sure what that means. But you can research on your own. And my purpose here just to give you an idea of what's out there. Um, Interesting to note that education rate in NCR, I think it's not surprising, is higher than Cebu province because they have more people here, more professionals, better schools, etc. And then the sort of like the, I think Davao City is higher population, but in terms of economic activity, I think, don't quote me on this, it's behind Cebu. So Davao region over here with the education rate of 82%. So we can sort of create this, we can see this pattern that probably not 100%, but education is definitely a factor in economic performance and quality of life. So but some people might say the quality of life in Cebu province is better than Manila. So that could be another thing. So there are a lot of nuances here. Again, numbers don't mean everything. It's just part of the larger picture. And then I just want to highlight the different regions in the Philippines. Currently, as of 2021, we have 18 regions. I think 3 of them are not numbered. We have the Cordillera Administrative Region, the CAR, NCR, National Capital Region, and then the BARMM, so the BARM, the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Mosu Mindanao. I think these are the 3 that are not numbered. Okay. You see there are 18 regions, 17 administrative, meaning part of the Philippine government, like for the most part, in general, and then 1 autonomous. So that's that's the BARM. So they want to be autonomous. They want to have their own like governance. Most densely populated is NCR. Biggest population is region 4A. So that's 4A Calabarzon. Most sparsely populated, meaning the least dense, that's CAR, the Cordillera Administrative Region. So those are the big 3 in terms like of population comparisons. The 18th and newest administrative region has the least number of provinces. So this is the what is this? NIR. So the Negros region. 8 regions depend on agriculture as a major source of food. So only 8 of the 18 regions depend on agriculture. I guess the rest are importing or doing some kind of industrial work to create their own food and livelihood. On average, 33.5% of houses in the 6 regions in Mindanao are built with strong walls and strong roofing materials. So I think this is highlighting that Mindanao has better like like housing infrastructure compared to the other 3, Visayas and Luzon. Okay, so with that out of the way, let me like stop recording here so I can break this video up. So let me just stop recording. So that